So this evening we're going to be talking about conclusions and recommendations. I will recap very briefly the title, terms of reference, procedures and findings, just to give you context, and then we'll look in detail at writing conclusions and recommendations for this report that you're working on at the moment. I have posted the link to the register in the group chat. So for those of you who haven't done so yet, please click on the link and then add your name to the register or the document that opens when you click on that link. It's in the group chat. I've also posted the WhatsApp group, and I'll just repost it. So if you haven't as yet joined the WhatsApp group, there's the link for you to join. And if you have any questions, then please go ahead and raise your hand, and then we'll address your question. So I usually turn my camera off for the duration of the session. It just uses less bandwidth for everyone, and so that you don't have to stream the picture on your side, and so you'll just hear my voice for most of the time. I will turn my camera back on at the end of the session so that I can greet you and wish you a good evening. Okay, so here we go. So I'm sharing the presentation with you now. And so welcome to the session this evening. Just the usual housekeeping to make sure that you know it's best for you to come into the session using the Teams app. Your microphone, as all of you will know by now, keep your microphone muted, your camera off. Add your student number to the register using the link in the meeting chat. Post your questions in the meeting chat. It's also a space where we interact and talk to one another. Sometimes it's not always possible for you to unmute your microphone. It may be noisy where you are. Your connection may not be the greatest. So it's a great place for you to just interact with me and interact with the other students who are in the session this evening. If you experience any technical problems, please email ctntut@unisa.ac.za and they will help you. All our sessions are recorded, and we record these sessions so that students elsewhere in the province who are not able to join us for whatever reason, that they have the opportunity to watch the presentation and then follow the presentation, the discussion, the notes, all that kind of thing. The presentations, recordings of the presentations are now available on this site, and all the recordings have been uploaded. The recordings go up as far as our last session, which was on Friday the 11th. And you can use this link to get to the recordings. If there's anybody who needs me to show them how to get to the recordings, please say so now so that I can show you how to get there and how to access these recordings. I also upload the selected slides from every week's presentation. Then there's an evaluation form that we require you to complete, and again, it's using a link in the meeting chat. Hello?
Please, ma'am, can you show me how to go to the recordings, please?
Yes, sure, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
That was Namhla, all right. Yes, Stefan, that's right. The session name, it doesn't matter, don't worry about the session name. Just add, it's, is there a reason you're asking this particular question, Stefan? While I am going to the link. Oh, yeah, it is session 7. And so, yes, that's where you would have to, that's where you must fill. That's what you must fill out. Okay, all right, yes, great. Okay, so I'm going to share my my desktop with you. Let me just copy and paste this link. So what is great about the what I do in the WhatsApp chat, just so that you know what happens there, people ask questions like, I mean, some people were asking me, Lynn, can you share the link? Can you give us the, how do we get there? And so it's that kind of stuff that happens in the chat. It's it is all, it all got to do with the module. We're not, there's no, you know, it's all quite professional. Copy link address. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the link address that you can use to get to the recordings and to join the sessions. You don't always have to come in via the link. Okay, so I've just posted the link to get to the sessions in the meeting chat. So I'm just going to open up that link now, and then I will share my desktop with you. Okay, so when you click on the link, this is what you're going to see. Okay, you'll see at the top there, my modules, Western Cape region. So you will land, when you click on, when you use that link in your browser, you will get to, you may, if you're not logged into my UNISA, you may get to a login page. All you do is put your UNISA login details, your username and password, and then it'll bring you to the site, and you're then going to click on Writing Center here on the left. And this is where you will get to. Then you're going to click here underneath events, workshops, and tutorial schedules. You click on this these words here, and you'll see it becomes it's a hyperlink. It says open in new window. And another tab will open, and you will find, I mean, okay, so these are sessions for happening today. And so if you look at, here we go. That's us there, academic business writing. You'll see this button here, join session. So this is how you get to the Teams live session like this evening. Okay, so when you click on this button, it'll say, do you want to open in Teams? That's if you've got the Teams app loaded. Do you want to open your browser? Do you want to join some? There are three options. So you select the one that's most suited for you. Because I use the Teams app on my computer, I have it downloaded, and I work in it. I always say open using the Teams app. So you can join the session from there instead of clicking on the link that many people use. Then there's this notes and recordings buttons, and this is where you're going to find all the recordings. So you click on that and you'll see another tab will open, and all the videos of all the sessions from the first time we started, they've been uploaded for your viewing up until the 11th, which was last week's, our session last week, last Friday. I think it was at 4 o'clock. Okay, so if you're wanting to know how to get to the notes, you see this gray bar here that says Open Class Notes folder. You click on that, and it'll take you to the ENN1504. Bear in mind that my view is different to yours. I have access to various folders, but this is where you're going to go, ENN1504. And you'll probably see semester 2, and there you will see all of the presentation slides that I've converted to PDFs. I've deleted quite a few, you know, the general housekeeping slides. I've just kept it to the content, and it'll be 2 pages, 2 slides on a page, so it'll be 4 pages that you can view. And so all of these, I think from session 4 onwards has got to do with the investigative report. And of course, after this evening, I will upload this evening's presentation also. Okay, does that help you navigate to the notes and recordings for the person who asked the question? Okay, you please use the chat and you can just give us a thumbs up if that helps you. I think it was you, Namhla, who asked. Zukiswa, you want to say something?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Okay, but is everyone, Namhla, is that okay? Do you now know how to get there?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's carry on with today's, what I've planned for today. So as I was saying, you can access all of the recordings if you go to the Western Cape Region site. And then at the end of the session, I will post the link for you to complete the evaluation forms. Then just a reminder about the Writing Centre's read and review service. Quite a few students have already sent me their drafts, and I have in the WhatsApp group been saying, reminding people of this opportunity that is given to you to get feedback in advance. Um, and I'm quite happy. I mean, some people have just sent me their title in terms of reference. Some people have sent me the first 4 sections, and that's what we've covered so far. So they've sent me title, terms of reference, procedures, and findings, and I've given feedback on that. And it's useful to use the service in that way, as opposed to sending a whole report that you've been, grappling with, and then getting feedback on the whole one. Whereas if you break it down into chunks, then the task becomes so much more manageable. Especially, we all have busy lives. It's work, it's studies, it's family, it's home life, it's social life, and all that kind of thing. And now with level 1 coming our way, we're going to have a little bit more time. We will be doing more things than before. So make use of the service. You still have time. 48 to 72 hour turnaround time. I'm the person who looks at your documents, and I give extensive feedback. And I think there are a couple of people here this evening who have already made use of the opportunity and have received feedback to whatever it is they've drafted so far. So yeah, link is in the meeting chat. So if you want to join, if you haven't joined yet. So this evening, we're just going to, as a check-in, we're just going to recap what we've done so far in the form of the title, terms of reference, procedures, and findings. And then we're going to get stuck into the last 3 sections of the report as required in your assignment. And we're going to be looking at conclusions and recommendations. And I'll tell you when we'll do the next workshop. And then we'll do a checkout. Okay, so you've seen this slide before. This is just giving you details as to where you can find information to help you, to guide you, write your report. So please make use of your study guide and use the information there. It's really, really important that you read through your study guide, especially with this assignment. Read the examples in the workbook. For now, you can ignore the progress report because you're focusing on an assignment. But we will get to the progress report when we are in future sessions, when we start focusing on how to prepare for the exam. So a reminder that our report structure is inherent. The structure isn't something that we have to figure out because we've been given very clear headings to use, and you've been given those headings in your tutorial letter too. It's nothing that needs to be researched or anything like that. Please, I want you to be fully aware of the fact that this module is not a research module. It's something where you need to use your imagination. For those of you who are in a place of employment or in a place of work, where you're familiar with report writing, use that experience. But what I do want to say to those of you who particularly those who are familiar with reports and familiar with report writing, the way in which you do it at your place of work may be very different to the way in which it is presented in this module, in this course. And so for the purposes of this module, I ask that you leave the way in which you do the report at work, leave it at work, and give back to the lecturers the report in the way that they would like the report as per this module. However, bring your experience of scenarios and how the world of business works and processes and systems. Bring that and your creativity, bring that to the report, and you'll find that it will definitely help you. So at this stage, are there any questions on the, or maybe let me just get into just recapping the title and then ask questions. You're welcome to ask questions as we go along. So the title then is all about what is being investigated and where this investigation is taking place. For example, your report is always going to start with the words report on an investigation into, and you are then going to fill in the matter that is to be investigated, the situation, the issue, the problem, whatever that may be. And in this instance, you are going to get this information directly from the background, the scenario, the situation, the context that is sketched for you in your tutorial letter on page, I think it's page 30. All right. Then you also need to provide the name of the company, the department, the business. And again, that information is provided to you in the scenario given to you. Now, some people have been struggling with the name of the organization or the entity. And in this instance, in your assignment, the name of the entity is the Unit for Educational Advancement. That's the name of the unit. Dr. Yandu is the Director for Educational Advancement Programs, which I imagine would be a section within the Unit for Educational Advancement. Now, I'm giving you this information because I'm fully aware of the fact that there are some people who don't have any work experience. So it's all of this is new. You're not familiar with how different departments fit together and how the world of work really works. So you're doing this module because it's one of your modules that must be done because you're enrolled in a program where you potentially might write reports. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, the presentation now, and I'd like to ask you if there are any questions about the title at this stage, or if everybody is absolutely clear about the title. Leanne, I see your question. Here is there's the register, Leanne. So are there any questions about the title? You can type in the chat box or you can unmute your microphone. Okay, Angelo. All right. So Stefan, Pumza saying thank you, challenging, even though people take it as easy module. Yeah. So for some people it's easier than for others, and it's very interesting. The people who come into the module with, you know, having worked, they tend to find it easy. But there are some people who have come straight into UNISA, straight from high school, and or you have worked, but you've never worked in a context where you've been exposed to reports. So it's always important for me to take that into consideration. Stefan, you weren't aware of the extension. So I will just show you. Did you not receive the email, Stefan? You should have received the email because it is I'm just sharing the sharing this screen with you. Okay, so if you go to sites, you would have received an announcement. Assignment 1, I think it was on this date. Yes, here we go. So here we go. Assignment 2 is due on 25 September. So you would have received this either in an email, but if you're not receiving some of the notifications as an email, it is still your responsibility to log into your the site, the module site, so that you can go and have a look at the announcements. So here on the 12th, which was last week on Saturday, Dr. Shandu posted a note to students to say there were some resources, there are podcasts, there's a PowerPoint presentation, and then there's a video recording of the session that she ran in last week. Now, there were questions, there was some confusion in last week on the WhatsApp group about this session that was being run. So bear in mind that Dr. Shandu is your main lecturer for this module. So if you look at the welcome message, you'll see here your ENN1504 team. There's Dr. Shandu. She's one of the primary lecturers for this module. Okay? Or one of the main lecturers for this module, and you will see Mr. Ralushai, who is the primary lecturer. He sometimes will, sorry, wrong tab. He sometimes will also post announcements. So there's Mr. Ralushai, the importance of assignments at UNISA, and he was telling you about this broadcast that was covering the importance of assignments at UNISA. So it's important that you know who's who in the zoo. This information is also in your tutorial letter right at the very beginning. All right. So for those of you going forward into next semester, 2021, pay attention to all of these things here. So Stefan, you've got some grace. Okay, if you were a little bit surprised by the reference to the extension. Okay, awesome. Yeah, you can take a bit of a breather. Plus, bonus, there's a public holiday next week. So, you know, if you're not working on the when is it? What is the date? I'm just looking at my calendar here. On the 24th, which is next Thursday, right? So yeah, bonus. You've got a day of where you can actually give it your attention. And then of course there's the weekend. So depending on your working hours, people, you have time. Hence my taking it really slowly with this business document that you are required to generate and produce. All right. Okay, so it seems like everyone's very happy with the title. So let's just go to the terms of reference. So terms of reference. In the terms of reference, this is the section in the investigative report where you provide the scope. In other words, the limitations. In other words, but more important also, you talk about who commissioned the report, who authorized the report, who requested the report, who was asked to compile the report. Where and when has got to do with information that comes from the title. So where meaning the place, the organization, the business. The when is the date on which the request was made. The purpose of the report goes back to the title. So what is this investigation about? And then of course by when it needs to be submitted. So I typed up an example here. So it says on whatever date, and remember your date must be in full. So it's the date, the name of the month. So it can't be the 1709-2020. We don't do that in report writing. Okay, we write the date in full. So it would be 17 September the word and 2020 the year, the numbers 2020. The name of the person plus the designation of the person, designation or the official capacity of the person, requested an investigation into, and it's here that you're going to insert part of the title. So it's for this reason that it's really important that you nail down the title early. Into whatever the title that part of the title requires here. And here you're going to insert the name of the company, the organization, the entity. Now for your assignment, this bit here is going to be at the unit of educational advancement. Okay. Recommendations are to be submitted to the name of the person and the designation and of the person and the date of the person. Now, it's fine if the name of the person to whom the report has not been provided. It can be the same person. You can submit the report to the same person as the person who requested it. Alternatively, you can create, you could say the executive team or the management team. It could be a group of people. It could be a committee. But you'll have to invent that information, and then you would have to provide the date. Now here I'm seeing some people are, and this is just feedback that I'm getting on those reports that I've reviewed and given feedback on. Remember, your background says the report should be submitted within a month. Now, within a month means it's within a month from this date, from the request date. So if you're saying on the 17th of September, it needs to be submitted by the 17th of October, within a month. Okay, so you can't say June and July and then year say, or so you can't say June year and then year you're busy with September, because that's much more than a month. If you do that, you will be penalized, because again you are not following the brief, the background given to you, the brief given to you for your assignment. This information is given deliberately because your markers want to see whether you follow instructions, whether you've read the background very carefully and have understood why that information has been given to you, and you have interpreted that information in such a way that you can demonstrate your ability to follow instructions. So, procedures then. What actions were taken? Why were these actions taken? Procedures must be written in the past tense. And again, I'm seeing some people struggling with writing in the past tense. And I think it's not because you can't write in the past tense. I think it's because you actually not, and I'm just going to say what I think. And I want you to ponder on it. I think it's because you're not paying attention to what you're typing. You're just typing it, and then you're not actually giving that sentence or that procedure your actual full attention. As in you're not present in the moment and telling yourself, oh, I must write this in the past tense. Okay? It needs to be written in the passive voice, and I think it was in last week that we spent a bit of time talking about what this means. And in your study guide, you have examples of procedures on page, I think I've got the page number right or wrong, I really can't remember. But go and look at procedures in your study guide for examples of procedures in your study guide. And then something really important, you need a minimum of 4. Okay? So here are some examples then that I took from some students writing from previous semesters. So, and I've highlighted the procedures for you. So remember, your procedures need to answer what actions were taken, why were these actions taken. They must be written in the past tense and it must be written in the passive voice. So what were the actions? What did they do? They distributed questionnaires. To whom? To all their editing staff, including the chief editor. Interviews were conducted with the editing staff to narrow down the possibilities of a solution to the problem of the English editors who are unable to oversee projects in a different language. 2.3, now pay attention to numbering is very important here, okay? And numbering is really important here too. So it's 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. The issue was brought to the attention of the chief editor and management in a detailed discussion via a conference call meeting. This is the procedure that was followed. The manuscripts were analyzed and compared to the current manuscripts received. Okay, analyzing and comparing the manuscripts, the current manuscripts, is the procedure. All right, and here look at the details provided. Received from whom? Members of the community, and up to 12 months prior to the investigation. So then we go to findings, and here our findings need to be directly related to the procedures. The numbering must be aligned with the procedures. We write in the past tense. Again, in the past tense, it's really important, and we do this because at the point of writing the report and at the point of the report being submitted and the report being read, these procedures and findings the findings would have been written up in the past tense, and the findings are based on procedures that happened in the past tense. So it must always be written in the past tense. It's really important that you do this because you're going to lose marks for grammar and language if you don't write in the past tense. Be specific with your data. Provide objective facts. Avoid opinions, avoid emotive language. Use your imagination. Think about what you would see, what would you hear, what would you read, who would you talk to, what would those people say when you talk to them, what would you see them do if you're doing observations, etc. So use your imagination when it comes to your findings. So these were our procedures, as I showed you earlier. And so I'm now going to show you the findings per procedure. So the first procedure was 2.1, questionnaires were distributed. So what was the finding from that procedure? The completed questionnaires confirmed, and I put in bold here the findings, that 80% of the editor's staff spoke English only. The remaining 20% spoke foreign languages in addition to English, but not the local indigenous languages. Now, what's important here is this investigative report was all about uh, an editing company who had the problem of they were wanting to publish books or they were wanting to publish stories in local indigenous language, but the problem was that most editors spoke English, and so they weren't able to edit the manuscripts that were coming in written in local indigenous languages. And so it was asked for an investigation to look into the feasibility or the possibility of publishing books in the local indigenous languages. So one of the first things that they did was, let's see if anybody in-house can do it. And so out of the questionnaires distributed to all the staff, including the chief editor, this was the result. Okay, so some people spoke foreign languages, but not the local additional languages. Then out of the interviews that were conducted, what was the outcome of the interview? What was the result of the interview? What did you find when you looked at, or when you thought back to what came out of the interviews? Well, the findings from the interviews of the editor's staff were that when applying for an editor's job, the English language was the main language requirement for the position. That's the finding, okay? That came out of the interview. Now, bear in mind that interviews were conducted. And so this then is a summary of what came out of all of the interviews that were conducted. The meeting with the chief editor and management, what was the result? What came out of that meeting? The meeting concluded that the editing staff was not equipped to oversee projects for books in the local indigenous languages. Okay? So do you see how the thread here is building up? That they don't have the capacity in-house to do the work in-house. Okay? Based on their procedures, and the findings are showing them where the gaps are in terms of this possibility of publishing books. If you're wanting to read the background in a little bit more detail while I'm reading out the findings for you, you can go to page 22 in your tutorial letter and have it in front of you so that you can get a sense of what this background scenario was all about. Now, 2.4 was the one about the manuscripts being analyzed. So what was the finding from that? The records showed that local indigenous language manuscripts have been increasing by 45% over the past 12 months. So this analysis, okay, of the manuscripts received up to 12 months just before the investigation, that analysis showed that there were 45% more indigenous language manuscripts being sent to Pages for Ages. So there was definitely a need, because remember, this investigation is into the possibility of publishing books in local indigenous languages. And maybe I should have put the title there just to keep that at the forefront. And so the question you need to ask yourself now that you've got all of these findings is, so what? Now what? So I've got these findings, but now I'm going to write conclusions and I've got to write recommendations. So before we go to conclusions and recommendations, let me just check in with you and see whether you have any questions about what was covered, the whole recap. Stephen saying? So, Stefan, the procedures need to be factual facts, but they are fictitious facts. You've made them up, if that makes sense. You know, like in a movie, the facts that are made up in a movie, same thing you're going to be doing here. You're going to create fictitious facts, but they must be believable. Okay. Anyone else who has a question regarding the title, the terms of reference, the procedures, and the findings? I'll give you a few minutes. I'm going to mute my microphone so that I can take a sip of water. For the people who have just arrived, and if you haven't as yet, I'm going to copy and paste the register into the chat so that you can just add your student number. There it's posted in the meeting chat. Please, will you add your student number to the meeting chat? I see there's some more people who have arrived since we started. I'm going to mute my microphone so that I can take a sip of water, and also to give you a chance just to reflect on those first four sections. Sorry, the first four sections of the report that we've covered thus far. And then if you have questions, post them in the chat, please. Okay, so I'm back. And so for the people who arrived late, here's the WhatsApp, the link to the WhatsApp group also, if you want to join the WhatsApp group. Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone has no questions because I haven't seen anything in the chat. If there's anyone who is not able to, for whatever reason, not able to access the chat, feel free to, at this point, unmute your microphone and ask your question before I continue. All right, so it would appear that everybody seems to be quite comfortable with the first four sections that I've just done a quick recap on. So let's jump straight into this what section of the report. And so it is so now you've got these findings. And so the question that you need to ask yourself is, so what? Now what? So what? I found these things. So if your findings refer to the result or the outcome of what you did in the procedures, then in your conclusions section, which is numbered 4, you need to do the following. What do the findings tell you about the situation or the state of affairs being investigated? So in other words, if we were to bring this back home to your scenario, what do the findings that you have uncovered, okay, what has your research shown you about the issue that you are investigating? So if you think about the situation that you find yourself in, bearing in mind that you the person, you work for local government under the Unit for Educational Advancement. So if we were to sketch a scenario, and I'm doing this deliberately because I've seen that some people have gotten their national government, their local government, their provincial government all mixed up. So local government in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, or while I live in Cape Town. So local government would be the city of Cape Town. Okay. Local government, it can also refer to your municipality. So if you live on the West Coast, who's the municipality? What's the name of the municipality on the West Coast? If you're living in, on the, along the Garden Route, what's the name of the municipality there? If you're living Somerset West side, Stellenbosch, what's the name of the municipality there? So that's the local government. Okay. Now within this local government that you work for, there is a unit that you are based in called the Unit for Educational Advancement. And in this unit, the auditors came along, and I'm explaining this because I've seen that in some instances, people are referring to auditors, and I'm getting the sense that not everyone understands the role of an auditor. Now, an entity like the local government, let's use the city of Cape Town because that's my local government, or the area where I live in Cape Town. So auditors come into an organization and their role is to check that there has been compliance, that the city is following this, is using the systems, the processes that they have put in place, and to see that everything has been done above board. That's the role of auditors. Auditors are usually external companies. They are not local government employees. So if you want names of companies of auditors, would be in South Africa, there are big names like Ernst and Young. What's the one that was in big trouble recently with the Guptas? Um, is it KWV? No, not KWV. Who were they? I can picture their logo.
KPMG.
Yes, there we go. Thank you very much, KPMG. Those are names of auditing companies, auditing firms, okay? And they then come into other companies. They are hired by these other companies to make sure that they have been following the systems and the processes put in place. And it's also to ensure that there's no corruption going on and all that kind of thing. So if we think about what's happening in our country at the moment, with all of the talk about corruption, okay, it's because systems and processes are not followed, that have been put in place or not followed, and then maybe they're not even doing the auditing properly. Maybe the auditors are on the take. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But it's just to give you a sense of why it says the unit for educational advancement was recently audited. So one of the things that auditors do is they will want to see every piece of paper, every invoice, every receipt. They track all the payments made, every requisition, every document. So, for example, when some of you have, so for example, in my job, I'm an independent contractor to UNISA, but one of the documents that I have to provide every single month is a list of all the dates when I ran sessions like tonight. Then all the students who have emailed me their requests for have Lynn, dear Lynn, please look at my assignment, and I've done all of that. That's why I must have your student number, be it be it on the WhatsApp group or be it via email, or if we do it on Teams, like one-on-one support on Teams. I always have to have a student number because your student number is the evidence that I need in order to claim my hour of work or my 2 hours of work. Now, the auditors will come and they will say, oh, we see Lynn worked for an hour on this date, but where's the evidence? You can't just say, Lynn can't just say she worked on the 17th of September. What evidence do we have? So examples of evidence would be this recording, the register, for example. Other things might be my presentation, which is dated. Then if I also claim hours of support when I do your when I look at your assignment. So if it takes me half an hour, sometimes it takes me an hour, I have to put that on a little report. So I report on all of that. And in order for me to be paid, I need to submit all that evidence. So now when the auditors come in and they say, okay, so Lynn worked on this date and this date, and where's the evidence for that? She said she looked at this student's document, but now there's no student number here. And there she's claiming an hour for it, but I don't see any student number and I don't see any evidence. So why was she paid? Was she paid for this? So they do all the checks and balances. So that's the role of auditors. Now I'm explaining this because I have seen that some people are in their procedures are referring to the auditors in one of the procedures. Now my question to you is, and please unmute your microphone or type it in there. Do you think that asking or interviewing auditors or asking the auditors for their report would be appropriate in this instance? It's a yes or no question, and then I'm going to ask you why. Anybody want to take a guess? Anyone? Yeah, Stephen, go for it.
So I say no because they did the audit which made us aware of the 20 million, and that report has to do with the unit for educational advancement, not for the auditors. So it's irrelevant to include them, I think.
No, yeah, okay, yes, thank you, Stefan, you're right. So using the auditors as in your procedures wouldn't really make sense because the auditors have already done the work. They have given a report and their report has found um, that the unit for educational advancement has underspent. Okay, so the auditor's report, and Andrea, you're saying no because the report is not concluded. I agree with you, no, but not because the report is concluded. Is not concluded. The auditor's report is concluded. Their finding was, okay, that yes, your systems and processes they gave you a clean audit, so everything was above board. All right, they ticked all the boxes except that you didn't spend everything that was allocated. That is why you now have been asked by the director to go and find ways to spend the money. So asking the auditors to be part of your investigation is really not going to help because the auditors have done their work already. They don't need to be involved in the investigation that you are going to be doing to find ways to spend the 20 million that was the excess money from your previous financial year. Now I'm spending time talking about this because I'm wanting to assist those who are a little bit confused by the scenario, and also to give you some kind of idea or sense of why some information has been given to you. Okay. Now, it also says you've been informed that this amount will be returned to the provincial coffers should it not be spent in the stipulated 6 months. So in other words, the auditor's report recommended that if the surplus 20 million isn't spent within 6 months, then the money is going to be returned to the provincial treasury. Now, there's national treasury, there's provincial treasury, and there is local treasury. In our country, we have 3 legs of government. We have local government, like the city of Cape Town. Then we have provincial government, the Western Cape provincial government. Every province has their own provincial government, okay? And then there is national government. And so province reports to national, local reports to province, and that's how the system works. So the money was given to the local government and then to unit of educational advancement by provincial government. The auditors have said in their report, you have 6 months to spend it. Okay, they've recommended that 6 months. Yep, absolutely, you can do that. So Stefan's saying, I can work for the City of Cape Town as a member of the Unit for Educational Advancement and just use the 20 million amongst the 8 districts of the Western Cape Education Department. Okay, now the Western Cape Education Department, so Western Cape Education Department is a provincial role, not a local government role. Okay, so you can do what you're suggesting, Stefan, but then you've got to be very careful in your descriptions of your projects. okay, and not get the different arms of government mixed up. Because the name WCED, the Western Cape Education of Department, is a provincial function. It's not a local government function. But you can make up a story with what you're suggesting there. Something quite interesting. Okay. So in terms of the 6 months, your investigation, all right, whatever plans you come up with based on your findings that your procedures spit out for you, your conclusions and your recommendations, whatever projects you want to then recommend based on what came out of your findings and your findings, yes, must be completed within a timeline of 6 months. Now, I'm explaining all of this to you because this is stuff that must be in your report. It's there for a reason. All right. Then there have been suggestions from staff on how this money can be used. That's one of your procedures already given to you. You must decide how you're going to get these suggestions from the staff. Okay. Then you are going to have to invent the information in terms of what the findings were, and then, of course, what the conclusions that come from the findings and the recommendations. So now that I've spent quite a lot of time explaining how local government fits into provincial government, how the unit for educational advancement, this imaginary unit for educational advancement, fits into local government, okay, and its relationship to the provincial coffers. Provincial coffers, I'm quite surprised that that word coffers was used because it's quite an informal word. I would have imagined that they would have said provincial treasury. But that's what stands to happen if the 20 million surplus, if the 20 million rand surplus isn't spent within the 6 months. So you've got to build that 6 months in some way in your recommendations, in your whatever projects where that money is going to be spent. And it's really, you can invent so many things. It's really, it's interesting what you can do. Any comments, any questions about this now? And remember that this unit for educational advancement is an imaginary unit. It doesn't really exist. Okay? And the educational advancement programs within the unit for educational advancement, those don't really exist. But what you're going to have to use that information, educational advancement programs, is you must give the detail of the programs where the money is going to be spent. And it must equal 20 million and it must be done within 6 months. Comments, questions, unmute your microphone. Is this helpful? No, it doesn't matter what level of education you base it on. You can invent whatever level of education you want to. You can go across the levels. You can start with early childhood development. You can go to primary schools. You can go to NGOs. So remember, non-government or non-profit organizations, they also involved in education and educational advancement. Okay. I mean, I'm giving you loads of ideas. Aftercare programs, there's reading clubs, there's book clubs, there's homework groups, there's there's libraries, there's so much. You can go to town here. You must just apply your mind. Whatever community you are from, imagine that you could yeah, and saying coolness. I like that. Yeah. So whatever community you are in, Sit back and just think about your community and think to yourself, okay, if I had this money, what could I, and I worked for something like this, what would I implement in my community that could possibly be replicated across other communities? Remember, 20 million is a lot of money, although, I mean, it also isn't a lot of money. So, it depends on what you don't, be realistic. Remember, you limited to 4 procedures, okay? That means you're going to have 4 findings. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to, so is there a maximum number of procedures? Stefan, no, there isn't a maximum number of procedures, but remember, you are limited in your length, in your report length, which is 2 to 3 pages. So don't go overboard with your procedures, because for every procedure there must be a finding. Okay? So try to keep it as tight as possible. Minimum of 4. If you want to go 5, that's fine. But don't go too many, because, okay, did Dr. Shandu say 6 max, if you remember? Okay, then that's cool. Then go to 6 if you want to. If that's going to give you the scope of the extent of which you're gonna go and create opportunities for this. If you're going to create the various ways in which the money can be spent within the parameters of educational advancement. Okay, so you need to reflect on, what does educational advancement mean? You don't have to explain it, but you must remember that that's the context. They don't say what level of education. You can decide to limit it to one particular level, or you can go across 2 or 3. But don't spread yourself too thin, because remember, it must be believable. All right. Okay. Are you happy? Can we carry on now with conclusions? Give me a thumbs up or unmute your microphone. Okay. All right. So thank you. I want to hear from you whether you now fully grasp all of the, I like to call it, nuggets of information, all the gems that the background gives you, and how you can use those little pieces of gold that has been given to you. Are you understanding why you actually need to sit with that one paragraph and just think about it? Think about where, what, who, why, how, and invent believable, in air quotes, facts around that scenario. Bearing in mind that you work within this unit for educational advancement, which sits within local government, such as the City of Cape Town, or whatever local municipality you want to go with. You can even invent a local municipality. It doesn't have to really exist, because you're not being marked on whether you're on facts, as in real live facts, okay? All they're wanting to see is believability. That's all. And I went through Dr. Shandu's presentation very briefly today, and that's one of the things that she also mentions in that presentation. All right, so let's carry on. All right, so procedures, well, the questionnaires, we've got the findings, right? There are the findings. So what? So our findings are referred to the outcome, the results, or the outcomes of what you did in your procedures. Your conclusions are all about, so what do the findings tell me about the situation being investigated? What do these findings tell me about the different ways in which I can spend this money? What do the findings mean in relation to the ways in which I can spend this 20 million? Why? What is the reason for what I found? So if we go back here, using those same questions, what does this tell me about what I'm investigating? What does this tell me about what I'm investigating? What does this tell me? Why is it so? Why is it that the English language is the main language requirement for the position? Why is it that only 80% speak English only? Why is it that 20% speak foreign languages, but they don't? Why don't they speak the local indigenous? Why is the staff not equipped? What's the reason for? Why have we done nothing about this 45% increase of local indigenous? Those are the things that must go through your head when you come up with your findings. What is the reason for what was found? So it's a summary of what you found. So the numbering in your conclusions doesn't always have to line up number for number. So in other words, I've got, and I forgot to put 3.1 here, I'm sorry. Let me just do it because otherwise I want you to be absolutely clear here. So as I was saying, the numbering, so here you've got 4 findings, right? But what we mean by this here, that your conclusions do not lead to line up number for number with the findings, is this. Is that because the conclusions is sometimes it summarizes. Sometimes you will have findings that can be summarized into one conclusion. And so you may find that you will have fewer conclusions than you have findings. So in this instance, the first conclusion was Pages for Ages editing staff is made up of mostly English-speaking personnel. And I'm trying to minimize this thing here. Then, rather than having a staff that is bilingual or multilingual, including indigenous languages. Secondly, the company lacked equipped editing staff due to inadequate management control to oversee the necessary skills required for the job position. And 3, community members insisted on having local books published to the public as the number of manuscripts had greatly increased. So, if you look at these 2 findings, who can tell me which finding, what am I doing? I'm sorry, I apologize. Which conclusion refers to which findings? Just spend a little bit of time reading it and then tell me which conclusion refers to findings. I will need you to unmute your microphone because I won't be able to keep the screen shared and see the chat at the same time. Anybody want to give it a shot? Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a hint. It's 4.2 conclusion. Tell me which findings does that conclusion talk back to? You can just give the numbers. You don't have to read it out. If you want, you can just post it in the chat. Maybe I should just go there and see what's happening because I can't. Okay, here we've got some action. All right, so some people are saying 3.1, 4.1, 3.3, 4.2, 3.4, 4.3, 3.2, 4.1. The N is saying 3.2, 4.1, 3.3, 4.2, 3.4, 4.3. Yeah. Okay. So there's one missing, Leanne. You've only got, remember, this is a summary of the findings. So essentially what is happening, and tell me if you agree with me. I'll just share the screen again. Essentially, it is 4.2 refers to 3.2 and 3.3 because it's saying the company lacked equipped editing staff. Okay. So if you look at this one here, but it can also even refer to 3.1 if you look at about the inadequacies of the staff there. But sorry, the lacked equipped editing staff because it's 3.2 talking about when you apply for a job, the main language requirement was for the position was English, and then they were not equipped to see that. Okay, so it was inadequate management control because who hires editors? Management does. So management is not haven't implemented effective controls to oversee the necessary skills required for the job position. So this 4.2 here can refer to 1, can refer to 2, and can refer to 3. So the reason I'm asking the question is I want you to see how your conclusions become almost a summary of your findings. Okay? So it's going to take some thought. It's not just something you can just put together, because it has to be a logical consequence. Because if you're thinking about, what do the findings tell me about the situation? What is it telling me? What do these findings mean in relation to what I'm investigating? Why is this like this? So you've got to interpret it. You've got to make meaning of it. Okay? And I'll tell you now that this is the place, it is in the conclusions that students often struggle. And often what students do is they repeat maybe the findings. Or sometimes they even go into recommendations too soon because they struggle with formulating the conclusions. So bear in mind that sometimes, because sometimes you will be required to summarize information based on your findings, you're going to find that your conclusions don't always line up number for number. So what that means is, if you've got 4 findings, it doesn't mean that you're going to have 4 conclusions. You might have 3 conclusions. You might even have 2 conclusions. Okay? Because your findings will point to you're coming to a conclusion based on what you found. Is that making sense to you? Can I get a thumbs up, or somebody say something? Is it making sense? Got it. Okay. All right. Anybody else? I see some people haven't said anything yet. I just hear from Leanne and Stefan. Pumza, Sukiswa, Winfelder, Namhla, Andre, David, or David. I'm not sure how you prefer your name to be pronounced. And then there's some people at the bottom here also that Miss Patience is here, and Nolotandu's here, and Richard is here too. Yeah, David, thanks, David. Cool to see that you're still here with us. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, so I've got 4 yeses. Okay, cool. Great. I'm so pleased to hear that. Fabulous. So let's move on then to, now that you've got conclusions, let's go on to recommendations. Okay, so these are conclusions. And again, so what? Now what? Okay, so if your conclusions are telling you what the findings are if your conclusions are based on what the findings tell you about the situation or state of affairs being investigated, they're telling you what the findings mean in relation to this scenario you're investigating. Remember, you're looking for ways in which to spend 20 million rand within educational advancement. Okay, you're wanting to promote education. You're wanting to enhance education. You're wanting to look at how do people access education? How do people experience qualitative education? How do you make educational experiences better for people? Now, I'm giving you ideas with regards to your investigation and what you can spend the money on. What is the reason for what you found? So if this is what your conclusions are all about, then your recommendations, these look to the future. What actions should be taken to solve the problem? Begin with action words such as make. It is recommended that makes something, that policy is instituted, that it is reviewed, money spent is reviewed every month, something like, but remember it must be that programs are implemented speedily, that whatever is incorporated. So these are examples of words you can use in your recommendations. So let's go back to our example. Yeah, and here we've got our 3 recommendations. Now, I'm going to show you these recommendations, and I want you to look at them very carefully, because I want you to assess whether these indeed do look to the future and what actions are being suggested to address the problem. The first recommendation says the necessary steps need to be made in order to solve the issue. The company should consider on a big scale that management should assess the employees' language skills before granting them the job. 5.2. It is recommended that Pages for Ages amend and review their job application requirements when referring to language skills and communication skills. Do you see how the recommendations are based on the findings further along? Considering the current issue, the company should fund and set up staff building courses along with exercises to train and educate those staff members who would like to learn the indigenous languages in order to oversee indigenous language manuscripts. It is recommended that the company should broaden their publishing book range instead of only publishing books in the English language to give the community what they want. The company should consider opening different branches of Pages for Ages in different cities for various language published books, including the indigenous languages. So, I'm going to tell you that there is a problem with number 5.4. Can anybody tell me what is the problem with 5.4? Bearing in mind that you saw, just cast your mind back to the procedures, to the findings, to the conclusions, and now the recommendations. There's a problem with number 5, with recommendation 4. And why is it a problem? You can unmute your microphone if you want.
Hi.
Hello, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think that is the matter that is being investigated.
Yeah.
So to recommend it when it is the subject matter, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Remember, in this instance, they actually had to look into it was having to look into the possibility of publishing books in local indigenous languages. That was the problem that was what the investigation was all about. So, does this recommendation solve the problem of the possibility of publishing books in local indigenous languages? Is there maybe something that you would delete in 5.4? Anybody? Okay, so have a look at the second sentence in 5.4. The sentence. Okay, I can't highlight it. The sentence here. Or the opening of different branches in different cities. I'm trying to minimize that. If you look at this sentence here, would you agree that this sentence is irrelevant to the report based on the conclusions and the findings? Was there any mention made of expanding the business anyway? Because this is what is being recommended here. Hello? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. As for me, I don't think there was something like that, like they mentioned for expanding the thing. No, there is no
No,
such.
yeah, you're absolutely right, Namshla. Nowhere in the findings was there anything that where they referred to potentially growing the business, and would and I see David said, okay, Patience, I see what you're saying. That's all right. Yes, David, you're right. Give the people what they want. Yes, and I remember I said to you, this is student writing, so I didn't fix it at that. I mean, I just copied and pasted. Leanne saying delete the last sentence. Yes, by opening different branches would not address the problem. Absolutely. So the point I'm trying to, and the reason I showed you this example, and I showed you, this is often what happens sometimes when in my experience of this module and particularly this assignment, students suddenly just throw in a recommendation, but then that recommendation has got absolutely nothing to do with what came before. And so I deliberately chose this one because it seemed as if this, wow, in fact, my feedback to the student was, how is this relevant to what you were investigating, and how is this relevant to your findings? Because nowhere in the findings did you was any mention made of possibly expanding the business, opening more branches, for you to suddenly now throw in, okay, because more people want it now, suddenly we must, And so the reason I put it in there was to show you how everything in your conclusions and your recommendations must be related to the findings always. Okay? You can't just suddenly come up with a wonderful idea. If you want to keep the wonderful idea, you've got to track it back to the conclusion, and then track it back to the finding, and then make sure that there's a procedure that will underpin the outcome of that, the finding of that procedure, to support what comes out in the recommendations. So we can't just throw something in because, oh, it sounds nice to do. You know what I'm saying? Okay, comments, questions. I mean, what are some of the, or is anyone here this evening wanting to talk about the difficulties that they are facing, if any, with writing conclusions and recommendations? Not there yet. Okay, so after tonight, you're going to be tackling, you're going to go and think about your conclusions and recommendations. So one thing that's very important that I haven't emphasized is that our recommendations are always written in the future tense, and we always use the word should. And your study guide does a very good job of explaining that very clearly. So I'm just going to find it quickly. That's the workbook, study guide, short form report, recommendations. Here we go. Okay, let's see if it's in the share tray. There we go. Okay, so I'm sharing you the PDF document that's now your study guide. And it says, so you are expected to make recommendations based on your findings and conclusions. This does not give you the authority to take decisions. Begin the introductory statement with, it is recommended that. So each of your recommendations could begin with, it is recommended that. Okay? And then it's really important that you suggest what could be done to improve the situation. So you are going to have to come up with suggestions that are based on your conclusions and your findings to address the spending of the surplus 20 million rand. And you've got to address the spending of that money. Of course, it must be within the boundaries of, or the limitations of, you are limited to educational advancement. Okay, so you can't say we're going to open a coffee shop on the corner, because what has that got to do with educational advancement? Unless, of course, you're going to say that it will be used for coffee and lunches and kinds of that kind of thing, but it's also going to be used as an internet hub for students to come and sit and connect to the internet to do their homework. And you would have postgraduate students who would be contracted to help students with homework. Then that's different, right? But if you just want the coffee shop on the corner just because of the coffee shop, then that's going to be a problem. So be careful not to make recommendations that are not supported by your investigation. That's exactly what I explained now with the coffee shop story. All right. They are suggested actions to put matters right and to solve specific problems. And your specific problem is that you have to show that you're going to spend the excess or the surplus 20 million rand. So I can imagine that in your recommendations, you're going to have to give numbers as in when I say numbers, you must refer to what something is going to cost. Okay, so if we run with a coffee shop idea, where it's going to serve as an internet cafe, and postgraduate students being contracted to help students with their homework, then you must say what the projected costs would be for the premises, for the. So be careful with the, or you could say something like it would cost approximately so much over the 6 months that you have to spend the money. Does it make, remember, you're not in a position to take decisions or give instructions. So you must use the word should. All right. And so I encourage you then to read through the examples in your study guide and in your workbook. Please, it's really, really important that you do that, to see how these recommendations and these conclusions and recommendations are worded, because you are welcome to use the wording, except you must change the details. Okay, so something like, it is evident that, that's a nice way of introducing a conclusion. All right, based on student and blah blah blah, there is and then of course your recommendations. It is recommended that bidding companies should include in their proposals the cost of renovating and installing necessary furniture and fittings in the hall. So go and read through all of these examples to give you ideas of how to phrase your conclusions and your recommendations. So it is now 7:46, and I'm going to open up then for questions. Okay, Stephen, you happy? All right. I'm waiting for comments or questions. Go ahead.
And me also, ma'am, on my side, I don't have a question, but I
Yes.
just want to say thank you
Yes.
for the sessions. They are helping me a lot, because
Oh,
even
okay.
yes, they are helping me a lot. I'm even worried about my first assignment, because I didn't get the chance to hear what I'm hearing today. like on the
Okay.
sessions. So I think I will do better. I will do better. Thank
Okay,
you so
all right.
much.
Thank you for the feedback, Namhla. I appreciate that positive feedback. It makes me
Thank
feel
you.
good that you are finding value in this time.
Mm,
And I'm sure, as you say, you'll do better in your second
mm.
assignment. So thank you for your comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
So any other comments or questions? Just to confirm that, as I showed you earlier, that the evidence that the assignment is only due on the 25th. Okay, go to the announcements tab and on the ENN1504 site, and you'll see, just open up Dr. Shandu, your lecturer for this, one of the lead lecturers for this module, what she has to say about assignment 2 being due on the 25th. I do encourage you to submit before the 25th. Okay, don't wait till the 25th, because sometimes the network becomes really congested and the site becomes overloaded, and then you might find yourself running into some problems. So if there aren't any more comments and questions, let me just finish off with the last section of the report, and it is and I'm going according to page 31 here of your tutorial letter and the instructions of your assignment, which it says use the following headings, and number 6 is the compiler's details. So important, and you will find this in your study guide and in your workbook. So you're going to have your signature. Now, if you are typing your assignment, you don't need to worry about an actual real signature. All you need to then do is just state your Ms. or Mr., your initials and your surname, okay? Then your designation. So remember, your designation is going to be whatever your work title is, and it is going to be underneath it, it's going to say Unit for Educational Advancement, because that's the place within which you work. And then the date of submission. Now, a hint, this is important. The date of submission, or that is always a few days before the due date that you have mentioned in the terms of reference. Why? So imagine you saying that the recommendations are to be submitted to the director by by 30 September. Okay, so 30 September is the date when the report must be submitted. Now, this date here that you are going to put under compiler's details, try to make that a few days before the 30th. So like Friday the 25th or Monday the 28th. Now, you do that because in the real world, okay, reports are always given to management. Management will want to sit with the report and digest it, and then they will have a meeting to discuss the report. So sometimes the report says it must go to the director, and so you give the report to the director, and the director then takes that to maybe their boss, maybe Dr. Yandu as a boss, okay, the chairperson, and so or maybe and so the chairperson of the board for the unit of educational advancement, and then the director then has to present this to the chairperson. So in the real world, we want to give the person some time to do this, because they must read it before they then pass the information on. So that's why your submission date is always a day or so before that due date that you mention in the terms of reference. So then, just a reminder, As you're approaching this assignment, read the background carefully so that it gives you context and relevant information for the content. Invent the content such as names, designations, dates, and details relevant to the context. Make sure that you keep to the format. The numbering is really important. Use the correct headings. Then make sure that your writing is organized, that it's write only what is necessary. Make sure that there are no questions, in the mind of the reader, that it's appropriate. Remember your language accuracy, your grammar, your style and tone, formal writing, all those good things are really important. So it's a structured document that you're busy writing with. Use the study guide and the workbook examples to help you understand exactly how to lay things out. Please, people, do not download reports from the internet and then copy and paste, because your marker will know and you will be penalized. Finally, again, read the background carefully. Use the information in the background to invent believable procedures that are relevant and suitable for the scenario. Use your creativity, your logic, and your common sense for findings, conclusions, and recommendations. So we've come to the end of the session with regards to conclusions and recommendations and the compiler's details. I will be running a final session on the investigative report next Wednesday, the day before the public holiday, in the same time slot as today, 6 to 8 p.m. If you are busy if you're wanting to email me your draft for review, even if you've only got as far as your procedures, please feel free to email it to ctntut@unisa.ac.za and copy me. This is my email address, and I will have a look at it. I'm usually, at the moment, I'm pretty good. So people get things the next day. And then, of course, join the WhatsApp group where, if, like somebody was saying, the network is really bad, so I can't ask a question. People in the WhatsApp, people have been posting voice notes in the WhatsApp group. If you don't want it to be in the group, you can direct message me or private message me on WhatsApp with a voice note and say, Lynn, I was in the session, but I was in a noisy place and I didn't want to unmute my microphone, or my connection was really bad and I had to leave early, but I really want to ask this question, or I missed what you said. Can you just help me out? And I will either type back or I send a voice note back to you. But what's important is that when you do that, just also type your student number in the message that you're sending me. It's really important. So we've come to the point of the evening where I need you now to complete the evaluation form, and I'm going to post it into the group chat now. I just need to find the link. And in the meantime, what you can also do is tell me what stood out for you this evening in this evening session. So I've now posted the feedback, sorry, wrong link. That's the WhatsApp link. Sorry, wrong link, copy link address. Here comes the feedback form. Here's the link for the feedback form in the chat. Fill that in, please. And then can someone tell me one thing that stood out for them from this evening session? You can type it in the chat or you can unmute your microphone. So one thing that stood out for you, please. Even if it's just one person who is giving some feedback. Yes, David. It's to join the group. Yes. Okay, Leanne saying having more clarity. Okay, all right. So you, from this tonight's session, you just got more clarity on the assignment. So after every session, it's more and more clear. Okay, like you learn something new every time. Okay, all right. Stefan says everything was helpful. Thank you. Okay, all right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So I will unmute my. Sorry, I will turn my camera back on. And I will say good night to all of you. I wish you all of the very best and enjoy the evening. And I hope to see you all next Wednesday at 6 o'clock if you can make it. Otherwise, you know, you can always catch the recording, and all the best with your working on your assignment. And interact with us on the WhatsApp group. It's working really well. And if you're wanting me to comment on your draft, please send it to CT and Tut and then copy me. And you should all have the if you can't remember the email addresses, send me a WhatsApp in the group, and then I'll post the information there. So take care, everyone. Have a good evening and enjoy. See you next week. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.